First order of business is the minutes. Does anybody have any corrections, comments, or questions about the minutes? Does anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Seconded? Okay, moved and seconded to accept the minutes as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted as submitted. First order of business is human rights. Do you have human rights people here? Nope, not yet. Okay. We had the
Historical Commission's here.
Okay, do you have all your people?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay. Okay, the Historic Commission has gotten $2,160. So apparently you're looking for a bit more.
Yes, I just wanted to say that our expenses are going up due to the popularity of Arlington as a building site. But I can just tell you that over the last 3 years, we began in 2015 and we were fairly even then with 7 formal hearings. 2016 we had 10 formal hearings, and by 2017 we had 17 formal hearings, and so the numbers of hearings that we have are increasing, and the some of the reason for that is the fact that more properties are being, we have a good real estate market, I think, and so properties are being transferred more quickly, and so we end up having even demolition hearings more frequently than we've had in the past. And we're tracking along the 2017 numbers to date this year. So I expect that we'll have, 17 to 20 hearings this year.
Okay, just to take a step back,
Mhm.
how do you spend the $2,160 that you have at the time, right now?
The two things that we use the budget for are for paying for the ads for our hearings and for paying for our recording secretary salary. And her salary, that was another thing I wanted to bring up, which is that her salary is around, she's paid $15 an hour at this point. And so her salary is around $900 a year. She has undertaken to manage a couple of other additional programs for us, and I would like it to be able to increase her salary a little bit, But I can't do anything within the budget that we have to do that.
Okay, so how did you end 2017? Did you spend all the money that you had?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how much are you?
And I believe with 17 hearings. So I called, and we have $1,700 up to in 2017. That was approximately what we have spent. So half of that would go into FY 18, and the other half will come up. But so we have in 2017, when we had 17 hearings, that cost $1,700.
Okay, how much are you requesting?
Well, I would like, I don't know what's reasonable, but I would like, maybe $500 more or something like that, just to be able to cover our expenses and to give Vicki. In addition, I just wanted to point out that we're adding properties to our inventory because the Historic Resources Working Group is using a CPA grant to both improve the accuracy of the inventory and to add additional properties to it. So this year, we're adding 130 properties, and we will be developing a plan for improving the accuracy of the inventory and adding additional properties, potentially adding additional properties to the inventory.
Are you subtracting any properties?
There are some that have been demolished. We have about 1,000 properties on the inventory at this point, but so we have to do a justification and take out the ones that have been demolished. We record that, but in some cases they're still there.
Okay, so if a house or church burns down, you would normally take that off the list?
We usually have a list of what has been demolished, but yes, it wouldn't be an active house, obviously. It wouldn't require a hearing.
Other questions? Tom?
Is there a fee to, for the applicant?
No, that's something that we realized that the Historic Districts Commission was doing, but we have never had a fee for applying.
Did you ever consider thinking about a fee and whatever the fee would be to cover your expenses? I mean, you're getting so many of them, 17.
We have not considered that at this point. I don't know what would be required for us to charge a fee at this point. Whether we would have to do something, I don't know what would be required to have us, ask for a fee.
Any other questions?
Does anybody, if somebody knows,
Well,
the circumstances for using fees in Arlington, then that would be
Well, I would assume somebody
helpful.
only comes before you if somebody has applied for a building permit or a demolition permit and the building inspector sends them to you.
Well, in some cases, we also, they come to us first too, but people check to see if their house is on the inventory, and in that case, what we do is frequently we have informal hearings for them that are not advertised, so that's at no expense to them because.
Other questions? Al?
There's an article on the warrant about increasing or changing the definition of a significant building to anything over 50 years of age. Would that have an impact on what?
Well, I think Len is going to withdraw, or, that article. It's my understanding.
Yeah.
He sent me an email that he was going to withdraw that article.
Okay.
Because we talked about it, and I simply, I was not in favor of that article because, first of all, that would, burden us significantly more for hearings.
So if it did pass,
It
it'd be a
would.
big burden.
Yeah, and it would also, I just feel like the method that we have, which is actually looking at the houses and evaluating the houses themselves, is more effective.
Yeah, I was going to mention that when we got to there. We got emails today from Wen Cardin, who some of you might know, what used to be on the Finance Committee, is now on the School Committee, saying that first of all, the Board of Selectmen voted to no action, recommend no action to the article. And one of the factors is because it's not just that you're going to demolish the house, but if you're changing 25% of the face towards a public way, then that also counts as going to the historic.
It's 25% of any facade that's visible from the public way, so frequently that's 3 or 4 sides of the house.
So it's much more than just demolishing. So at that point, the selectmen have voted no action, and Len wants to withdraw it, even though it's going to be voted no action, and look at the whole thing next year. So we won't be hearing that today. Okay, is there any additional questions on the Historic Commission's request for $500 more for the next fiscal year? Now, if you got by with $1,700 last year,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to have about the same number of hearings, don't you have a little leeway there?
Just a little bit, but, you know, our budget doesn't cost you anything in the sense that anything that we don't spend simply reverts to the general fund. It's my understanding. And I would like to be able, as I said, to give Vicki a small raise.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
Okay?
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Production.
Okay, so we'll have two more articles. We'll take them when they get here. On human rights, which should be here any minute. And on the arts appropriation. Human Rights Commission just went through the budget. The manager is supporting going from 4,500 to 7,500, so we'll find out what that's about when they come. The manager recommended just the 2,160 for the Historic Commission. We just heard the request for around 500. What are the thoughts of the committee? Do we stay with 2,160? Do we add 500 or something in between? Charlie?
Move 500.
Additional? Yeah.
Second.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded for 2,660 for the Historic District Commission. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of 2,660 for the Historic Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hope they didn't hear it out there.
Paul's a yes.
Oh, Paul's a yes. Okay, thank you. They'll think we're getting soft.
Yeah, we have like 3 minutes to relate that
Okay, Liz,
Yes?
is Human Rights here yet?
Yeah, one more person, and I think they're just coming up the stairs.
Okay,
They
so
have a
bring them
7:45.
in.
Okay.
Which number article will this be?
This is all under Article 37, the committees and commissions. And when we finish this one in the arts and culture, we can sort of put away that whole one. Okay, I'll open the hearing for the Human Rights Commission. And so if you could introduce yourself and what you're asking for and why.
Okay. I'm Sherry Barron. I'm a member of the commission for the whole time it's been in existence, which is, I think, 23 years.
I'm Dave Swanson. I've been a member of the commission for about 1.5 years, so I don't go back as far as Sherry. But I'm the newly elected co-chair as of January of this year.
And we're waiting for our other co-chair, who should be along any minute, but we'll get
Yeah.
started.
Okay.
In the interim, yeah, we're happy to get started. So I just think, right off the bat, we just wanted to sort of preview, I think, what we have done and what we'd like to do moving forward, and that will sort of justify the increased ask for this new fiscal year. So in each of the handouts in front of you, you can see we've sort of given a review of what we've done this past year. Many of the new activities or new focus have been around advocacy, education and training, and community engagement in particular. 3 examples of those of sort of I would put under the auspices of newer types of activities, advocacy in particular, the successful drafting, advocacy and adoption of the Trust Act resolution, which was the sanctuary town status at the 2017 town meeting. Education and training, we had a great 2-night AHRC sponsored cultural competency. Hey, man. Nice chair.
Liz, do we have another chair around? They gave us nice new chairs, but unfortunately they didn't give us enough.
We could stand, yeah. I can get another one from downstairs. Easy to-
Hi, I'm Naomi Greenfield. I'm the other co-chair. I'm sorry I was 2 minutes late and you were all ready to start.
Just sort of recapping what we, some of the new things we've done this past year around advocacy, education, training, community engagement. Talked a little bit about the Trust Act resolution. On education and training piece, we had a great AHRC 2-night event around cultural competency. A number of commissioners were there, over 30 town members were there, representatives from APD, HHS, the library, all focused on cultural competency training. It was a great 2-night event and something that I know was a long-time goal of the commission, so it was nice to come to fruition. There was a community engagement event that was solely sponsored by AHRC, the Double Take event that sort of culminated at Arlington Town Hall. It had over 100
200.
Oh, 200 town members in the audience. And I think essentially what we'd like to do in the next fiscal year is increase the number of those activities, hence the additional funding request for the following fiscal year. And if you want to maybe walk through the reasons why.
Yeah, I think, we've seen just in the time that we've been in the commission an uptick in the number of incidents that have been reported to the AHRC, a variety of, hate incidences or hate graffiti and things in the schools. And so, interestingly, that's sort of one of the things that sort of spurred Dave and my interest in joining the commission is seeing how we could have a positive impact on the community as these things started to rise. And also we've seen an uptick in people coming to our open meetings, which was something that I don't think happened before. And so there's really interest in the community in getting involved, even people who aren't commissioners. And so, we'd really like to take advantage of that interest and the opportunity to educate the community about human rights issues and some of the stuff that we're doing in the AHRC, and also really continuing to partner with a lot of the organizations in town that are doing this great work. Like just this weekend, Sherry and I were both at the Arlington Reads event one of the Arlington Reads event at Robbins. That was
Kickoff.
It was just a perfect, like we were a sponsor of it, but it was planned by the Robbins Library, and it was just great to be associated with a lot of things that are going on in that area. So there's a lot of energy among the new commissioners in town to do more programming and to have a really, a more visible role in the commission. Sherry mentioned in one of our last meetings, we've been around for 25 years, or we haven't been on for 25 years.
I think 23.
Oh, 23 now? Okay. And there still there's always new people coming to town and new opportunities to engage with people and let them know what we're doing. So.
Yeah. And I guess we should point out another such example about the uptick in particular in hate incidents. You probably saw the coverage in The Advocate about the Ottoson Middle School anti-Semitic hate graffiti incidents. In response to that, we put out a statement. We reached out to the school community, and we're now partnering with the Anti-Defamation League to put on a series over the course of the upcoming year, beginning April 10th, so stay tuned for that, on hate symbols and the history behind hate symbols, the meaning behind hate symbols, and in an effort to educate and build awareness in the community from that student level on up.
Yeah, and I'd say we're really trying to sort of, some of these things are difficult to hear about that they're going on in town, and I think for some people who aren't, community members who aren't as involved in sort of the backstory of things that are going on, we're trying to, hopefully come a time where there'll be a lot less of them or none of them, but even if as these things pop up, to let people in the community know that the Human Rights Commission is here and we take it very seriously, and this is not representative of our town. So being that public voice and communicating with the advocate in the schools is really important too. So we're sort of, that's what the tone we're starting to set in this, kickoff to the new year.
And I
Sorry,
would
of
just
course.
add, we've been coming here before you for 20 years. Not every year, but I've come a few times, and we've always had a level funded budget. Some years we haven't even come to represent ourselves. Things are more expensive, and speakers are expensive, and the rental of town hall and those kinds of things. So we thought this was a good year to finally try to bump it up a little bit.
And to Sherry's point, we should indicate that the town is supportive of the additional request, and we owe a big thank you to Town Manager Chapdelaine and HHS Director Bongiorno and certainly Chief Ryan. Without their partnership and their support for the commission, we would not be the commission we are today. So this is not an increase that was decided solely by the commission, but with some significant town input.
Okay. Questions from the committee?
How much of the
Darryl?
increase are you actually looking for?
So this would be an additional 3,000 increase over current level funding.
And
No.
the 7,500 was recommended by the manager. Okay,
I have one.
Sure.
So you have a very nice detailed budget for this year. Where do you see the 3,000 showing up in the various line items?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
That budget is reflective of the total amount. It's not a
Yeah, I think he's
3,000
asking
additional.
where do we see the increase most likely?
The increase, I would say in programming is in the most, because there haven't been as many AHRC individual programming, like programming that we've run in the past. So the double take event was one that was like brand new. So there, we did it fairly on the cheap, I would say, with using Arlington Eats for food, and we did the town hall rental, but even just printing the signs that we put in front of town hall, that was a couple $100, and there are True Story Theater is another partner that we're interested in doing some events with, and there's some costs associated with them. So I think that though that's where I think most of those things have come up with.
Yeah, I totally agree. And some of it is in, I guess, additional marketing and branding. This past year, for the first time, we partnered with ACMi on a particular event that comes with a partnership fee. They'd like to continue that going forward, and we'd like to do more work with them. So.
In the past, we've done, actually, maybe not this past year, I've not been that involved, but we've tried to do at least 2 or 3 dialogues a year. We've done that since our inception, but they've really been done on the cheap. They've been wonderful, but for example, one of them was made up of students from the high school and a moderator. One of them was at the library, and Christine Deschler was the moderator. So things now that we're looking at come with a price tag, where we were able to do a lot of ours before that we put together, but we didn't have a large expense for them.
And
Okay,
I was going to say, some of them are also marketing things that we're hoping to get a lot of reuse out of. So we're we're going to have a new logo design and hopefully have a banner that we can have printed that will be reused for multiple things. Even, some of the town, I designed the town hall sign for Double Take so that we could reuse parts of it, like covering up the dates and whatever. So we're wary of using the money in a smart way, but we really would try to. We don't want to be hindered. We have a lot of ideas, and we want to sort of have the funding to be able to try to implement as many of them as possible.
Okay, Carolyn?
Do you find that you're collaborating with the police department and or HHS in various ways? And how might some of those collaborations be? Like what are some examples of that?
I mean, we're hoping to partner a lot more, I would say, in the years to come. We always do outreach to all of the groups in town to sort of, for help when pushing out messaging and in variety of things. I mean, I think right now ACMi has been the strongest partner that we've done because we've had them come to a couple of our events, and the storytelling event had a number of auditions, so we were there several nights a week for a couple months. But we had even talked about wanting to partner with some other human rights commissions around Massachusetts. I have a friend in Wakefield, and they have a really active one, and sort of maybe trying to do some cross work with them. I actually think the ADL event, we're doing a lot of outreach to co-sponsorship with Lexington and Bedford, and
I should say on the police department front, I mean, we hear from them on a monthly basis to the extent that there are hate incidents or discriminatory-based incidents in town that would rise to the level of complaint to the commission. Part of our mission is to serve as sort of a mediary conflict resolution commission to the extent that formal complaints arrive on our desks for someone who in town or a group of individuals in town who feel that they have been victimized. So we're constantly in communication with the police department about those incidents and whether they might rise to that level.
And they come forward to you as well as you bringing things to them?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, we get, when incidents come in officially through the, I mean, I guess it depends where it comes in. If they're coming through the police department, we get notified. And sometimes if something comes, I mean, this hasn't happened yet under our leadership, but if something comes to us and it seems like it hasn't been reported to the police, then we have a connection with there. So I think that I feel, it's been a very good, partnership, in that sense. And then I also would say just programming-wise, whenever there's, the Pride celebration or the MLK event, those are all events that we always, and the Robbins Library event. Anytime there's something that sort of falls under the purview of human rights, we will, want to sponsor it or offer a marketing push out and stuff. So.
And so the last piece, we mentioned it earlier, but the 2-night cultural competency training that took place a few weeks back, it was, I thought it was awesome to see over 30 town employees there. It was clearly this, in addition to the commission, it was clearly this sort of affirmative, yes, we care about these issues as well, and we're here to learn and go through this training with you. And so that was nice. There was members Arlington Police Department, HHS, Robbins Library, AYCC, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, Charlie?
Yes, on your mediation conflict resolution training line there, is that for people on the commission, or is that training that you give to people in the town?
Yeah, that's something that we've requested of the HHS for commissioners, but in the same way as the cultural competency training was, initiated by us. We had a whole room to fill, and so we offered it to other people in the community. So I imagine that's one that if it was if the facilitator would allow more people, we would open up to other people in town groups. That's mostly because as things come in, that we're sometimes we can do conflict resolution with people in a discussion, and sometimes it needs to be elevated a little more, and we just would like all the commissioners to have a little more expertise there.
Doesn't the state offer conflict resolution training and for free, I think?
I don't know, but that would I know Christine.
Well, they offer it. I don't know if it's
Yeah, I know
free, but they do
Christine
offer it.
Bongiorno was doing some research for us about mediation offerings, but that might be a possibility.
Okay, Tom?
In your budget, you have $200 for food. What is that? Oh.
Well, most of the time we've done, that's the Stop and Shop food. Yeah, I mean, I think that was probably paper goods or any perishables that we had at the event. I mean, at Double Take, we had all food, link food, but then I think we also, we bought some paper goods, some juice, some other things that weren't available.
For the events?
For the events, yeah.
I mean, we've also had events where commissioners have brought in food. Over the years, we've asked Stop and Shop to donate. We've asked Quebrada. We've used Lakota Bakery. I mean, certainly we will get food for free if we can, but sometimes we just can't. I mean,
Yeah, and
you
I
have
think
to buy bottled seltzer water or something like
I
that.
think this was reflective also of, like, we had a number of commissioners who paid their own money for events, and I'd like to avoid that in the future, just because they do enough to
Well,
also
you
have to
can pass
pay.
the cookies
I'll
around.
pass the cookies. $200 for the cookies.
Okay, Brian?
You mentioned complaints that you handle. How many a month, or what's the frequency of it?
It depends
It
what
ebbs,
year.
Well, it's been
Yeah.
averaging, it's low. And, I mean, I always say when I deliver our message to town meeting, which is periodic, that's the good news and the bad news, I think. I mean, it looks good because we have maybe 4 complaints that come in, but there are many more incidents and conflicts, I think, that go on that are just not reported to us.
But
Yeah,
I
I
would say
think that's-
A lot of it is because people, I mean, and we learn it at every town day, people don't know that we exist. So we
But
try our
we've
best
had
to.
at least a few a month, I would say, like more in the past year. Well,
Oh, this past
in the
year?
past
Maybe,
year,
yeah.
Let's
yeah.
use that as an example. It's time.
Yeah, so in the past year, I think we've had a few a month. Some of them are not official complaints that go through the complaint form, but they're emails or calls in the Human Rights Commission. But Sherry's right. In previous years, there was probably, like, I don't know how many, maybe 10 over the course of the year. But we've seen a lot more in the past year. So.
And some are certainly property-based incidents that involve, hate graffiti or hate symbol, and so we're notified by APD so we can track, the rate at which those are occurring in town and the
Okay, so
nature.
including incidents, then what's the frequency? I'm just trying to get a handle on it.
Actual incidents, I mean, we could certainly follow up and
Yeah.
Roughly,
provide.
I mean, you know what you see.
Yeah,
Say-
I would say we probably get like two to 4 that are officially reported on a monthly basis. And then, some are phone calls that come in to HHS that are triaged as not, human rights complaints. But there's definitely at least several, I would say between 2 and 4 that we talk about at our
I think
monthly
that's fair.
meetings.
Yeah.
Christine?
Do you have a balance right now in your account?
I believe we do. We have
Mhm.
through fiscal year 17. Right?
From this
I don't know
past
that
year?
we have the fiscal 18 numbers.
We do have a balance.
Yeah, we can get you the
We'll
exact
get you the numbers.
balance.
Okay, this is from fiscal 17 you were looking for?
Right.
Oh, fiscal 17?
Right.
Yeah, this is we have 1,500 balance in fiscal 17.
Did you have a balance in fiscal 16?
Yeah, that was 147 was the balance in 147. Yeah, so certainly, I mean, looking back at the history, there certainly has been balances run at the end of each fiscal year, and I haven't been with the commission long enough to necessarily say why, but I'd like to think that that the commission, we are trying to spend the money responsibly, and so while we're asking for that additional increase because we feel there is capacity to do more and an energy and appetite at this point in time, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to spend the full boat. I don't.
And as you know, I mean, the money doesn't roll over at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It goes back to the
I-
general fund.
And I would say as we bumped up to the end of that fiscal year, there were new requests for funding that came in that we didn't have time to vote to approve, and so that was a part of the reason of making sure that we were really allocating for what we're trying to do for the coming year. So.
Charlie?
So I'm wondering if you have any way of developing metrics on what you do and what you have done. I mean, the list of activities is certainly impressive, but also cases, cases resolved, cases not resolved, or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, if you're not, I mean,
That's a
maybe
good
everybody
point.
on the commission has visibility into that, but if you're outside the commission, you don't really have a sense.
Yeah,
That's a great point.
we've actually spent, I would say Dave and I spent probably the first month of our time as co-chairs trying to make a lot of the past information from past years digital and organized in a way that we could tally things and have a broad sense, because we had two co-chairs who had been co-chairs for a long time, and there's a lot of, when you sort of have done something for a while, there's institutional knowledge that they retain in them, and there was a transfer of knowledge, but then there was a lot that we sort of had to figure out on our own. And one of the things that we started doing is we have a spreadsheet where we're tallying the types of, well, not only just incidents, but even phone calls, and categorizing them. And my goal is to be able to have some pretty clear metrics, even on the types of phone calls we're getting, how they're resolved. I think the police department will track the actual, the ones that are really more official in the log, but now we at least have at least since we started, everything that comes in is cataloged in a way. And I think our programming, I don't know how, I guess the metrics for our programming would be in the number of people that come to them. And so we've talked a lot about making sure there are sign-up sheets and follow-up for people who are attending. The only reason why I sort of know the number of people that were at Double Take is that we put out 100 chairs, and then we had to put out another 100 chairs. So that's not actual metrics, but something I think is good for us to look into going forward, is how popular certain programs are. And that's a good point.
Okay, Peter?
How would you characterize the Human Rights Commission as seen by the police department? Why do they come to you? Why don't they handle things themselves?
Chief Ryan, I can take this to begin with. Chief Ryan, since he got here, has been a wonderful partner. He came from, I believe, Concord, where he received a Profiles in Courage award. He was very, very involved in human rights issues in Concord, and he's shown us over the years, I don't know how many years he's been here, probably more than I think he has, but he has come to us for advice, for help, and it's a shared issue, but he tries very hard to make sure that we have the cases when they come in. I think he views us as a real asset to the community, as we feel he is in the police department.
And they follow. They're not just handed off to us when they come in. I mean, there's still official incidences in the police department with their own investigator, and we've just been checking in to see if they have, specifically with the hate incidences at Addison, that's their own open ticket that they're going into. It's just that we have a little knowledge into it from the human rights perspective.
My understanding is, and then Sherry spoke to it, that there's sort of a long-standing partnership that has existed between the commission and the Arlington Police Department. I think the most recent example that at least I was on the commission to witness was the Trust Act, or Sanctuary Town Status Resolution, that was put forth in 2017 town meeting, sort of emanated at the commission level, who then worked with the town and the town council to develop language, who then also worked with the Arlington Police Department, who really embraces this idea of community policing philosophy. And Arlington PD was on board, the Arlington town government was on board, and so that was sort of an instance where they created a partnership with the commission to put forth town meeting language resolution and got it passed.
Other questions? Dave?
How many members make up your commission?
13, when we're fully formed.
Are there vacancies, or is that?
I think
There's
one vacancy now.
So there's no current vacancies. There's been 2 appointments there, and one has been confirmed, and just needs to sign the town. Needs to sign in
Take
at
the
town,
pledge.
and then the other.
She's confirmed.
The other commissioner has been
Yeah.
confirmed, and I think she'll take Mel's spot
Yes.
when Mel moves to the Rainbow Commission. So there was 2 vacancies up to maybe the last month or so.
And actually, the Mel Goldsype, who was the former co-chair, she actually chose, there were so many applications for the one open spot that she said that she was going to step down because she wanted some, sort of new blood in there. So that was sort of a testament to the amount of interest and energy.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
We
Yeah,
appreciate
Good
your
questions.
Yeah,
the
thank
time
you.
and effort you put in. Don't forget to pass the cookies around. You can't just leave them in front of you, Tom.
I don't want to.
Sign.
I think I would want it. Maybe I won't watch it that way.
Sorry.
What?
Thank you.
Okay. You've heard the presentation and the request. What is the will of the committee?
I think we should give it to them.
Oh, you always think you should give it to them. Very
But I
well.
know they do a lot of good work, and they do it in conjunction with other parts of the town. So I feel like they're engaging all parts of the town. Some of the programs that are put on are because, some money comes from them and some from the library and some from, I think that Christine oversees the whole thing very well. I really think that it's a
Okay, other,
benefit.
I'll make the motion to approve the recommendation.
okay, so you're making a motion to,
Approve the second draft.
is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Charlie?
Yeah, I gather that the budget's been pretty stable for quite a while, right?
I would assume so. I mean, most of
I wish
these,
they were a little bit more quantitative in their historic presentation. But, if this, considering the activities that they're involved in, they haven't had any change in the budget in a number of years. Just the inflation is, eating into what they can do.
yeah. Other discussion? Stephen?
Just a comment, and I think historically we've looked at the Human Rights Commission and have asked, well, how many investigations have you done, how many complaints? But in their charge, in the bylaw, the 2 biggest items are community outreach, or the first 2 items are community outreach and education, and clearly they're doing a lot of that, and I think sometimes maybe we focus more on the investigation aspect in terms of, or rather than a lot of the other things they're doing, and they got a little defensive about the number being low, and they shouldn't be defensive about that because they're so involved otherwise. So I agree with Charlie in terms of they haven't had an increase, that they're out there, they're doing a lot of programming, and it seems to make sense to increase it.
Yeah. For some reason, in the last 16 months, there's been a lot more diversity issues. So, in human rights issues, I don't know why. Okay, any further discussion? John?
Well, some of the horrendous things that have happened in the country recently, for example, the recent shootings of children in Florida, we always think about how you're going to spot these people. And I think AYCC is one place where we have a chance maybe of identifying somebody who is in real trouble. And this organization as well might be able to identify So, in a manner of speaking, just because it might have the possibility of identifying something, I think that there's a real positive to this organization.
Further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded for $7,500 per the request from the for the Human Rights Commission. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Liz, by chance is the arts people here?
I didn't see anybody else,
Okay.
Because they're not supposed to be here till 8:30, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually I have 8:45, so
8:45.
they'd be early. Budgets, who has budgets?
John and I have budget.
Enterprise funds?
But we've not, well, I'll get to those.
Oh, okay. Well, tell us where to start.
That's it.
Good?
We're gonna do more. The link in the recreation department, so we're gonna pass around the brochures from recreation.
Not that many, just so you can see the
Yeah.
awesome things they do. But I am going to pass out new sheets for Council on Aging. Because,
So which budget are we starting with?
let's start with Council on Aging, which is on page 153. Not Council on Aging, Transportation.
Sorry,
the other
excuse
one.
me.
This is about the geriatric nurse and how much she gets paid. All right, so.
What page is it?
153. 154. So I'm passing these out because these are the new sheets with some changes. So the geriatric nurse works 24 hours a week. 8 of those hours are paid for by the town, and the other 16 are paid for by the state. That was one question you all asked last time.
Those
But I
percent,
take that back, it's 6 hours and 18 hours, I misspoke. What?
those dollars or percents you just talked
Hours.
about? Hours.
6 hours, the town pays for 6 hours, the state pays for 18 hours, so she works 24 hours. And it is a new person now, which is why I gave you new sheets, because the salary has changed somewhat. So we have to vote that again. That's okay. So if everybody has one, you can see that the new Council on Aging salaries are total $267,598. The expenses are still $29,500 for a new total of $297,098. And I move we accept that payment.
Okay, so you moved for 297,098, and that's because the geriatric nurse was started at a lower step than the previous
Right,
one.
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay. Are there any questions? David?
The social workers COA went from 54 to 68.
She's the one that's being, yes. One of the social workers is on a grant, and so she's partly paid by the grant and partly paid by the town. Is that what you're asking me, or what?
Well, no, I mean, the bulk of the salary increase is the social worker, it looks like, going from 54.3 to 67.9.
Yes, because she's now full-time working with the seniors. And when I talked about that, the number of seniors that are considered low income, and the number of seniors are about 16% of the town population, but 51% of our low-income folks, households.
So what had she been prior? If she wasn't full-time?
I don't remember.
Do you have last year's numbers?
All I know is that now she's full-time. I don't remember. Do you remember when Christine said what she was last year? I don't have the budget bill from last year with me.
She's another one that went right up to the map. Because she worked for us for a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's at
Yeah.
8, okay.
Yeah.
5 and 8, so she doesn't.
Okay, are there any other questions?
And is the rental, are they renting the senior center as well? Is that the 8,500 increase?
Yes. It's part of Health and Human Services. So the Council on Aging, Health and Human Services, they're all run from the senior center. The Council on Aging reports to Health and Human Services.
Why did the senior start charging more rent to everybody?
Well, Charlie explained it last time about the previous tenant who used to pay all of it left, so now.
Because they can.
Well, I mean, but it seems like there's a larger question, which is that like, should the, if there's vacant.
They had, I think the answer partially is that they had two tenants, commercial tenants. One was, perhaps both of them were from the state, but one of them was the State Department of Mental Health or something, a fairly substantial office. And that group moved out into another state-owned building. And I think a second, schools for children is the other tenant that moved out. And so when the school took over the Gibbs building, right, they displaced the Arlington Center for the Arts, which is a private organization, but they made some arrangement with the town to use that space. But they're not paying the same market rent that the other people are paying. And they moved, in some of these, I don't know about these particular offices, but certainly the retirement board moved from the school department to the senior center. And the veterans, I think, moved there. So there was some general relocation, and it is a building that's, in some fashion or another rented out. It's part of an urban renewal fund.
So where does the money ultimately go? I mean, I understand we're paying.
It goes for the maintenance of the building. I mean, it's an enterprise. An urban renewal fund is a form of an enterprise fund.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's probably $60,000 worth of like just rental increases to the senior center that are in this budget.
To Health and Human Services. They're
Yeah.
just separate from the senior center.
If they had to go rent property someplace else, they'd have to pay a higher rent.
No, I don't disagree, but I guess maybe the answer is no, but isn't there a way, if we're all working towards providing services with maximum efficiency, that we can do something at a larger scale for this? I mean, it just seems weird that, I don't know, it just seems like an interesting number to reflect that, I don't know, it seems like we're just, I don't know where the money's going.
Well, money's going into the, it's like an enterprise fund.
So, I mean, yeah.
And the money's going into the enterprise fund, and if that fund operated at a deficit, the town would have to make up the money.
No, I understand.
So-
But maybe there's a way to, it sounds like that we're paying because there's vacant space. Part of that's what I heard, is there's vacant space.
Well,
so-
no, other people left, the people who were paying the rent.
Yeah.
And so that.
The town made a conscious decision not to go out and get high-paying renters. I mean, whatever the decision was to bring the Center for the Arts there, it was a conscious decision.
Okay.
So the overall income for that building has dropped, and they sort of redistributed the charges.
So the building's full.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, actually, it might be.
I saw the plans for the Arlington Center for the Arts. They're raising money to renovate that space. And I think you can, if I may suggest, you can think of it as a subsidy by the town
Yeah.
for the arts.
Yeah,
That's
that makes
how
more
I-
sense. I think what I originally heard was there's like vacant space in it, and so we're just paying more.
No.
That's what I thought you said
I'm
before.
sorry.
No, the space
No,
is
they
all going to be
vacated
occupied.
it and
As
they
a matter of
were
fact,
paying.
the ACA would like even a little bit more than they have right now.
Yeah, okay.
But not pay more money.
Yeah.
Well, I think I sent around a report on all the rental properties, and there's a section in there on that building. I mean, it's fairly detailed, but it has all the ins and outs and the balances and so forth.
Okay. Carolyn?
As a matter of fact, the building is so full that the retirement board, which sits in that space, is concerned that they're going to get kicked out in the next 1 or 2 years, which then means they're going to have to rent at market rate in town. And they have to rent a space that is ADA approved, and if it's not on the first floor, it has to have an elevator, which then increases the rate of the amount of rent they will have to pay. And so they're trying to stay in the building, but haven't gotten word whether or not they actually will get to. So that's an example of how they're paying a rent there. It's higher than it might have been in the past, but it may not be as high as it would be if they go into the community.
Any additional questions? Okay, the motion's been made and seconded for $297,098, which is almost $1,000 less than it was before. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
Including Paul.
Including Paul. Okay.
All right, so I want to go back to Health and Human Services.
Okay, if you could
Oh, sorry.
hold for a sec. Liz, are they all set?
Yeah.
Okay, let's. Sorry, you get bumped.
We'll come to that. That's the
We have 3 seats and 2 boxes of cookies.
All right, well done.
Okay, reason you were here, last year we combined all of the arts and culture, at least we thought we had, for all these different activities under the Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture, because they are the town body established by bylaw to handle this issue. And we said everybody had to come to them, and we had this issue out of the way. And then all of a sudden, and the Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture said that 25 was fine, which you barely got by a 10-8 vote last year. And all of a sudden pops up 15,000 more. And so, 2 questions. What is this extra 15,000 for? And why is it in a separate budget?
All right. Well, I'm Jennifer Reid. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development. I do have, I have 4. I realize it's not for everybody, but just if you want to distribute it around. This is the Arlington Arts and Culture Action Plan, which is something, maybe I'll put 2 of these this way, which is a planning process that actually started the year before last, using the services of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. It was funded with technical assistance from that agency, as well as supplemented by the Community Development Block Grant to create an organizational plan. All of those documents are in that one plan that I just distributed. So that plan essentially said that in order to, you want to do 2 things. One is you want to look at the staffing issues. How can the town create the right infrastructure to support arts and culture? If arts and culture are important to the town, it can't just be, sustained by volunteers, essentially. And volunteers across 5 different committees or commissions, as well as 1 nonprofit organization. There has to be a way to find some better organizational structure, and then also in conjunction with staff support from the town. So the goal 1.4 in that plan basically identified that we needed to look at staffing. We wanted to house that person in the Department of Planning and Community Development, and that they would work on as a liaison to the Commission on Arts and Culture, doing everything from grant writing to marketing, publicity, cultural district activities. These are things that didn't exist probably the last time, during the last annual budgeting cycle. And now that we have this plan document, we're trying our best to basically find ways to not only work together on the organizational aspects, but also to find ways to staff and support arts and culture activities. So staffing was one of the first things. The second thing is coordination. And that engaged basically all of the different arts organizations in town, including, of course, Adria and Stephanie on behalf of the commission, to look at better ways to develop a more coordinated annual action plan. And that coordinated process is frankly what led to you all supporting them last year with the $25,000 that you did, to then devise that plan and strategy to work together and improve operations in the coming fiscal years. And so what we've put forward is something that does both. You're continuing to support their operations as a commission, but also a new thing, which is supporting some, very lightly I would say, staffing that will help to advance the Arts and Culture Action Plan in ways that are very important. As I had mentioned, the Cultural District, which was designated actually in the summer of last year, so in this past fiscal year, or current fiscal year I should say, to continue with the excellence in grant writing and securing new funds, leveraging funds for the town, and to engage in also various placemaking activities. So my department is involved in lots of different planning activities across town, and we see opportunities to further engage a public arts consultant to help us with those activities, of course in conjunction with the commission. So in the past year, you may recall, if anybody went on the bikeway, there were lots of different public arts activities that were happening. It was mostly in celebration of the 25th anniversary of the bikeway, but we want to continue to do things like that to support people coming into town, support tourists, support people ultimately contributing to other economic activities in town. So all of those things were leveraged by one consultant person that happened to be in the commission's budget previously. One part that we're trying to do here is engage my department in working in coordination with them because, well, they're volunteers. And having somebody full-time to help to oversee the work of a consultant and also in coordination with a commission and various volunteers is quite important. I think it improves the manageability of this process for the commission and the town. It improves integration and communications. It allows for somebody to manage and oversee that consultant's work very appropriately. And frankly, it just makes better operational and administrative sense. It's an administrative burden for volunteers to oversee that kind of operation. So that is I think, the main reasons that I wanted to share in answer to your questions.
Okay. Do you ladies have anything to add to that? Nope.
No.
Questions from the committee? Carolyn?
Why isn't the arts and culture budget, why is that done under planning and not under salaries if it's going to be a person?
It would be a consultant. So as with the past 2 years, we've had that same budget amount, and we put out a request for proposals and then engaged in the consultant services of somebody to help with these activities. I think something to look at, and actually it's in the annual action plan, this arts action plan, is to look at the sort of the capacity and whether or not that makes financial sense moving forward, and if we want to actually put that into something more like a part-time position or a full-time position. For now, it's a consultant.
So last year we gave 25, and how much of that was used for a consultant?
15,000.
And then this year, you're taking the 15,000 out of the commission's budget and putting it here.
Mm-hmm.
What will the commission do with an additional $15,000 then?
Go ahead.
So the commission has taken on like as we talked about last year, the consolidation of the arts organizations, and including a brand new arts organization, which is the Cultural District Managing Partnership. So it means that we'll be overseeing and being responsible for, helping to support that cultural district, including programs and including our brand new website. That's the other big thing that we were using our budget for last year, was to build this website, which will be done by the end of this fiscal year. And we need someone to help, manage that, it's to feed it and make sure things change and do all that. So there's a lot of, and there are a lot of technical upgrades that may be needed. We also have an annual fee to Arts Boston, which is the calendar system that we're using. So there's lots to do with because the new website and the new cultural district. We feel like that we need to budget for that.
So how many groups are within the organization?
The Arlington Public Art, Arlington Cultural Council, Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture, that's us, and the Cultural District Managing Partnership.
So what we're really doing here is taking $15,000 out of the arts and culture budget, putting it in planning, and increasing the rest, using the space for more arts and culture commission.
No, we're not taking out 15,000. They're keeping 15,000,
They're-
and then we're giving another 15,000. That's why I just asked the
Yeah.
question: what are you doing with the 15,000 that is now we're now adding to the planning budget? So this is actually an increase of 15,000.
Right. Well,
Sorry.
said it poorly, but yes, that's
Okay.
right. Charlie?
So, could you give us a detailed explanation of what you spent the 25,000 on? And
Last
what-
year.
And what
Last
did
year.
the consultant
For this
actually do
year.
with the 15,000?
I want to answer the first one. I'll take that second.
Basically, the budget was fairly simple last year, except for the basic administrative costs. The rest is being put into the arts and culture website and the consultant. It was split between.
That's not a detail.
Oh, you want the detail? Okay, gotcha, detail. I've got the detail. Page back. Okay, so the public art consultant was actually allocated 10,000.
It was only 10.
10, it was 10. Public art storefront signs, $56. The poet laureate, $500.
Slow down.
Slow down.
Are you writing this down?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 10K was for the public arts consultant?
Right.
Okay.
56 for storefront public art signs.
5,600.
$56. We want detail.
Yeah.
No, just-
Yeah, the poet laureate, $500. Web development, $9,900. Logo development, $1,500. The URL for the web, $16. An email account for the website for the organization, $50. Web hosting, $100. Arts Boston calendar syndication, $2,500.
I'm sorry, once more, 2,500 for?
For the Arts Boston service, what we're using on our calendar for the website will be a service by Arts Boston. Basically, everyone will enter their events into Arts Boston, which will give them greater exposure, but we will have a widget on our website that will filter only Arlington events for our website. Town Day, looks like we only spent $15 from this budget. The rest came from public art budget. So, American for the Arts, Membership, $75. Administrative costs, $100. So that should bring us up to $24,813.55 with leaving uncommitted for now, $186.45. But
That is this year's budget.
that's for this past, for FY18. But what we haven't shared with you yet is how much money we also brought in. The money that you give us is used to help leverage other funding. So because we could put up a match for MCC, we received $5,000 from them toward cultural district, but it has to be used this fiscal year, so we've been using it to make the website even better. And then we have, and also for the cultural district logo. Yeah, the cultural district logo. Where's the other document with all the other money?
Yes.
Yeah.
This one.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, we received $1,000 in cultural council grant money for the Pathways Public Art Project. We received $800 in support of the Fox Festival from the Friends of the Fox Library. $300 from Audison for the Pathways Artist in Residence program. The Mass Cultural Council, we received $2,500 for them, for Pathways. We had a house party, raised $2,000 for Pathways. The National Park Service, we received a technical assistance grant for the Pathways bike path work, but it also came with $2,000. An Aeronaut Beer Company, $700, and the Mass Cultural Council, that $5,000 I mentioned. So we've raised $14,000 this year.
And we never would have gotten the cultural district designation if we hadn't had this Pathways Public Art project along the bike path, so.
So we gave you 25 and you came up with an additional 14. Okay.
So do you want me to answer the part about the job description, what the person does?
Okay.
Yes, okay. So what I'm proposing and we're proposing for this consultant would be much of what they've been doing, which is the grant writing, so continuing to leverage funds to bring new money into town. Marketing and publicity activities, which includes a lot of the things that Stephanie has already outlined, including promotions of various programs and festivals, the website. The cultural district, we don't have a dedicated person. We have lots of, the library director and myself and the economic development coordinator are basically the staff who participate in that cultural district process. Everybody else is a volunteer, but we all have other full-time work to do, so we would like to have some support from a consultant to help us to really make the cultural district it's a great opportunity, and we want to continue to work on it. It's very much in its beginning stages, so the cultural district would be a very important part of this person's work. And then, as I mentioned before, there's a number of different planning initiatives that my department works on. And two of the things that we've thought about engaging a public arts person to help with would be the Whittemore Park Planning Project, which is something that is funded by the the CPA money. We just hired a landscape architect to help with a plan development, and we intend to have at least 2 public forums where we want to have something a little more interesting. Town Hall is interesting, but perhaps some other place with some other engaging activities. And then we're in the midst of implementing later this year a bus rapid transit pilot along Mass Ave, and we think that utilizing the services of a consultant would also be helpful for that project as well. So that's, and then one other thing was, in the Arts and Culture Action Plan, there's actually a number of recommendations around making potential amendments to the zoning bylaw and even town bylaws in support of the arts and culture. And so having that person on board would also help us to kind of take a look at some of those things for perhaps future town meetings consideration. So that's in a nutshell what we think we can leverage from somebody for $15,000.
Okay, Tom, did you have a?
So last year we gave you 25,000. In detail, you showed you used 24 and change. What'd you do with the other 14,000 that you raised?
Oh,
well, they went toward paying artists for the Pathways project mostly, artists and the publicity and signage and things. Where's the rest? Where's
It's
it?
over here. Yeah, the public art.
It was all, you know, in the Fox Festival too, she hired a person to do like puppet making and stuff like that. So mostly for hiring artists to, yeah, that's what it was.
Were those events?
Well, Pathways is a public art project that's on the bike path that you may have seen over the past year. The Fox Festival is an event, essentially.
It's part of Feast of the East.
It's part of Feast of the East now. It happens at the same time, and it's.
Did you raise any money on that event?
We did from Friends of the Fox. Yeah, they gave us some money to do.
It's part of the 14,000?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other was, you know, cultural council money that's for the for the Pathways also. I mean, most of it was for paying artists, and then also, you know, for the designer for logos and things.
Carolyn?
Going forward, please show up with paper that has all of this information on it, because it's hard for us to follow it when you're talking to it, and it's hard for us to then have a discussion afterwards if it's all just oral memory that we're relying on. Because we're a different breed of people. We're not artists, and so you have to come to us as finance people, not as artists. And that means having detailed numbers and explain, you know, and the pragmatism behind it and the process behind it.
Grant?
I have some questions about the website. What's the name of the website?
The website will be called
artsarlington.org.
Called what?
artsarlington.org.
Artsarlington.org?
Yeah.
And when's the live date?
Probably June 1st or so.
June 1st or so. How are you going to understand the need for a website? But
yeah.
Part of the dilemma with anybody who's maintaining the website and keeping it up to date becomes obsolete really quickly. And I don't see the website in the plan.
Which plan?
So are there any
The Arts and
goals
Culture
for
Action
the
Plan.
website that you know that the website's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing and worth the money that you've invested into it?
The budget, our budget for FY19 includes someone to maintain the website, to refresh it, as you say. I mean, all the organizations are going to be putting in their own listings, and that we will also have someone to, you know, to push that out, you know, to remind them.
And social media. We understand that that's a really big, a big piece of it. That's why we've asked for $5,000 to pay a consultant to help do that.
Not really.
So, I'm sorry,
Not
it's
consultant, I mean,
$5,000?
Not a consultant, I mean, a webmaster.
Sorry, $5,000 to have somebody to maintain the website.
Okay. Yeah. That's for the next budget.
And that's part of the 15,000?
The 25,000 in their budget
In their budget.
is related
just
to
asked
the
for, yeah.
website.
So basically 7,500 a year with the Arts Boston account.
Only if they get the grant again. Right?
I'm sorry, Grant, had you finished?
Well, I didn't
Go
get
ahead,
the
I
question
mean-
answered about the goals versus website. How do you know that it's actually worth the money that you're investing in and getting a return on it?
Oh, well, we will have analytics built into the website, so that we'll understand, you know, how many people are visiting and finding out about what, and clicking on what, and such like that.
This has also been something that arts organizations for the last 6 years, as far as I know, have really wanted. You know, we are the umbrella organization for all of the arts. The fantastic, rich art organizations that we have in town have struggled. You know, we see signage everywhere. Everybody's duplicative. There's nothing that's brought everything together. You've tasked us to bring everybody together. And this website is that umbrella organization. It's the face of it. So when people go to it, they will see all the richness that's happening in Arlington. And the webmaster will be also so good at social media to promote that stuff, to get the web stuff out, because we know that a website just on its own does not do enough. It has to be promoted. It has to be pushed, print media and social media constantly. It's a big part of it.
one more time, I guess, how do you know again it's gonna work? There aren't any, you will
Well-
have metrics, but there aren't the metrics now. There is no, I mean, what's the, how do you know it's working?
Well, it is fulfilling the needs that many people have expressed when we did this cultural planning process. It was a very public process, and there were several public meetings, and everybody was interested in having a website where they could find all their information and a comprehensive calendar. So what we're delivering is a website that is going to serve both artists and residents and people out of town in finding out what's going on and where they can rehearse and where they can see a show and where they can do this and that. We've used the Arts Boston calendar because we think it'll incentivize people to actually list their stuff because it will get a wider audience beyond Boston. And we're including this calendar because that's what everybody has been clamoring for. So I'm sure just the fact that we have that will be a success in itself.
And we're
So
hoping
actually,
that,
may I, just for 1 second.
A calendar and to do so, you think you're gonna meet the goal?
So that actually, there's a TDC organizational plan as an appendix in that Arts and Culture Action Plan. And the TDC plan, that's hard to say like multiple times, it actually said that basically the biggest demand was for some sort of coordinated calendar that compiled all arts and cultural activities in town, and they were actually the organization that recommended Arts Boston to us and synced us up with them and found a way for us to improve so that we weren't actually creating something new, we were capitalizing on something that existed and doing something that would be an improvement to whatever we might have created as a website for the town.
Right.
So it did come right out of that plan.
And as Adria said, it's the face of this consolidation. So that for everybody else, you will no longer be confused, like, oh, there's a commission, and there's a council, and there's Arlington Public Art, and who's that, and who does what, and we don't know where to go. The website is where to go. This is the homepage, and this is where you're gonna go. It's gonna be great. It has upcoming events, it has news, it has a spotlight section that says, welcome to Arts Arlington, and then everything else you will be able to access through the menu. So there's one spot, it's a clearinghouse.
So I can go there to see what's playing at the Capitol?
Definitely.
Okay. Ellen?
Well, I totally understand the need for a comprehensive website that covers everything, and I'd like to see it cover more stuff in the town, including businesses and other events and arts. But the numbers you're talking about seem to me about a factor of 10 off. For a website this simple, 10,000, you said $9,900?
Oh, yeah.
And then $2,500 a year for the calendar?
Yeah.
Those seem to me to be about a factor of 10 off. What was your process in choosing this
10
web
off
developer?
how? You mean too expensive or too cheap?
Well, too expensive. I mean,
Wow.
this is a few $100 website, and
Oh.
and for a few $100 you can get a calendar aggregator that'll pull for everybody else's calendars. So I'm wondering what was the acquisition process to find this $10,000 for the website, because that really seems high.
No.
And I do websites, so I know the costs.
Well, we did put a call out to various consultants, and we went with, we so happened to go with the most qualified, but also the one who came in, closest to budget. So, this is what this kind of a website costs as far as we're concerned.
Well, what was the process for deciding who to go with for this?
Well, we had 3 candidates, and then they all presented to us.
Actually, had 4.
We had 4
4 candidates,
4
yeah.
candidates. And
You developed an RFP with
Yep.
criteria. You had
Yep.
people review with you as part of one of the commission meetings, and one of, I think, Ally
Yep.
Carter
Ally did,
participated
she
in
did,
that
yeah.
process, and others.
Mhm.
So it was a process with set criteria and with multiple interviews, and then they made a decision.
Okay, it sounds like a ripoff, but but anyway, that's a different discussion. And $2,500 a year for a calendar aggregator, again, sounds way too high. That should be a few $100s.
Well, they do vet the listings, and they do have a broad reach. like paying advertising dollars, I guess.
The trick is to get people to actually upload what they're doing every month or whatever. And so people don't want to, they won't do it if they feel like it's wasteful. People know Arts Boston. Everybody knows Arts Boston. And they want to be on Arts Boston's site because they know that Arts Boston reaches all over the place. So we felt like that was a smart idea. Go with a place that already has a well-known reputation. People want to have their things listed there all the time anyway. So we thought that was really, a very wise use of the money to spend it that way.
Okay, John?
No, mine was just answered, thank you.
Okay, David?
You mentioned, the calendar aggregator, in some of the social media outreach that you want to do in
Right,
2019.
yep.
Is there a way then, would you come back to us a year from now and with some metrics about just how much small business activity you were able to generate?
Sure,
in terms of
we're
traffic?
planning to do that.
Yeah,
we're also planning to
it
sell
seems like
ads
this is a
eventually.
great small business promoter in
Yeah.
Arlington, so it seems like, but that's the real, to your point, that's the real return on investment in some ways. Like how people are actually showing up at these events and then
Yeah.
buying coffee, buying drinks.
We will have those numbers. We're
Yeah,
hoping
we're
to-
the cultural district, to having cultural district, we have to provide some impact evaluation to the MCC, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, that gave us a designation and has given us funding. So we're accountable for that, and so we do have a marketing and evaluation committee, and so we will be looking at that.
Okay. And you mentioned the 15,000 for the consultant.
Yeah.
Part of this is to help you think about zoning changes.
Potentially.
That seems like what, can you give me an example of what kind of zoning
Yeah.
changes?
So actually in the Arts and Culture Action Plan, there's a whole study, a whole assessment of a suite of things that could change or support the arts. So about 2 years ago, the town adopted mixed-use zoning. And as part of the mixed-use zoning, we included things like artisanal craft, so fabrication, and ways to do new things in existing spaces. We'd want to continue to explore that and open up the possibilities for live workspace or other things that technically you can't do without some extreme permitting or process that does not currently exist. So that's an example of something.
So
And that would be in the business districts.
So, I'm sorry, Carolyn?
Why should this 15,000 be in your budget and not in their budget?
So the reason that I mentioned, and I think that we've spent a lot of time planning and collaborating and discussing this, so you know. And the reason for it is really to help to make it administratively easier for everybody, for both the consultant and for the town. So it actually creates less burden for volunteers to oversee the work of a consultant, and it then also helps to better integrate it and have improved communications with that consultant and with the commission and with all the other players that are involved in these processes. So that's the thinking, is to have you're having a full-time staff person overseeing the work of a consultant the same way that we do that with other consultant work on other types of projects.
And this will be a one-year thing, or would you get a number attached to it and it'll become an ongoing line item?
I think it's something we want to better understand what exactly capacity and support we need to move forward. So I wouldn't commit to it being exactly the same next year at all. I would want to be able to, to your point, when your earlier question was, is it a staff person? Why isn't it in your salaries? I think we want to investigate what kind of capacity is needed to really move forward with this great action plan that we've got now and with all the other activities that are slated. Is it really just a $15,000 consultant, or is it more than that, or is it less than that, depending upon the needs? So we would reevaluate it and come back next year.
And
something
rent
different.
maintenance is in your budget?
Yes.
Okay, Stephen?
Yeah, is the new site that you're proposing to develop, artsarlington.org, will that replace the arlingtoncac.com
Yes.
website?
Yeah, but that's not a website. That was more like a blog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that website's still on the town website as a link.
Right.
And it links to a site that says nothing found.
Right.
But is that what the $9,900 was used for this past year, for looking into developing that site, or?
Not developing that site, to a whole new, that was when we had no money. We had no budget. We had to go, find something for free, basically, and struggle to see if we could make it happen for no budget at all. This is the real deal.
Now, last year, or this year, fiscal 18, you spent about $20,000 creation of a website and for the consultant. And then $2,500 for the calendar aggregator. So you had about $2,500 left for general purposes plus the $14,000. Now we're taking, the website's finished, you only need 5 to maintain it. The consultant is being shifted to the planning department. It seems to me, you know, last year we increased this to 25,000. If we're putting 15 in the planning department for this, do you really need 10,000 of that 25,000? I mean, we can't just keep increasing this thing exponentially to go from, I can't remember what it was before, but 10 or 15,000 to 25,000, now to 40,000. So considering your consultant is now shifted to another budget and you've already created your website, would it be more reasonable to get by on 15,000 plus the consultant?
Oh, wow, that's a big...
Well, it's...
Well, what it means is that, I mean, part of it is that we're trying to launch this cultural district. Once the cultural district is sort of going and the website is going and maybe we can get some advertising money or like additional funding because we've got all this, you know, then we can sort of relook at these things. But what we're asking for is kind of like the seed money to really launch it and make something of it. Because if the cultural district, you know, it just sits there as a designation, but then, you know, you're all going to say, well, we made such a big deal about this cultural district and nothing's happening. I mean, we need the money to push it forward, and as you know, we need money for website maintenance. And then, yeah, we put in some contingency for, you know, needing some kind of technological upgrade or, you know, different needs that couldn't be addressed in phase 1 or something, just things that might come up regarding the website. So there's a bit of contingency. You could eliminate that, I suppose. We could get by for longer before we did it anymore.
You know, I'd like to make an observation. We talked a lot tonight about communication, but you really didn't communicate what you did with $25,000 until we pulled it out. And you haven't really communicated what you're going to do with the 25,000 in the future and the 15,000. So, you know, if the whole thrust of this is communicating with the public and creating demand, I think, you know, you're not accomplishing that with the finance committee on a short-term basis.
I mean, all I know that you're going to spend now is $7,500, 5,000 to maintain the website and 2,500 to help with it, but we know nothing about what else is going to happen.
Well, we did submit that budget. Didn't we?
Yeah, we
Didn't we submit this year's FY19 budget to you?
Yeah, because that was what, we gave it to Adam, and Adam supposedly sent you guys the budget, which you were supposed to look at.
This is the $25,000 budget.
Yeah.
Correct.
I don't remember.
The $15,000, do you want more information about the $15,000? Because I feel like those are two separate things.
Well,
One's a
obviously they're not
consultant
separate
and
besides
one's
culture.
the
We would
budget.
have sent you the budget if you'd asked us for that. We gave it to Adam. We assumed that that was given to you guys to be looked at.
I have it here. Again, I have it here. I can give you chapter and verse on this budget if you'd like.
Can we table this conversation and make them come back with more detail of those?
How many line items are on the budget?
I think we just ought to wait to put up the 15,000 for next year. Figure out what, I mean, have the 15,000 and the 25,000 now, because the website's going to be finished and so the one-off, there's basically another 10 or 15,000 inside that 25,000 coming available.
Well, I think before we make that decision, I'd like to see if there's a budget.
Yeah, there is a budget.
Okay, can you?
Absolutely.
We should see it and make some decisions based on what those numbers are.
Okay, I agree. Rather than sort of go around this with you reading stuff, could you electronically send to Liz, our executive secretary, the budget, the full budget for fiscal 19, And also, if you could maybe break down a little bit more detail on how you see the consultant doing, because like I said, we went from 10 to 25, brought it together. The recommendation to give you 25 was by a 10 to 8 vote, and now all of a sudden we're going from 25 to 40. I'd like to see, before we go with 40 or some number between 25 and 40, I'd like to see the breakdown for the fiscal 19 budget.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry that you don't have that. That we did submit. I don't know why.
I don't know if anybody saw it in the budget book. I don't remember seeing it. Chuck?
I think we deserve some visibility into the future too. I mean, the idea that this $15,000 would go into the planning department, and then next year maybe be $30,000. I don't know. It's not. I mean, there should be some commitment here as to exactly what we're looking for over a period of time.
Well, so let me respond to that, please. So what I said was that I would evaluate the need for a position, and that's something that I had actually hoped to do this year, but what we did instead was take the consultant position and put it into the department budget so that we could support the Arts and Culture Action Plan advancement of policies and activities, as well as the other things that we already mentioned. And with their increased activities, which I think has been pretty well outlined, maybe with more information to all of you, you'll see the sort of line item budget, but that's the thinking for now. So we would evaluate it in the future, as I mentioned, to see what we need to do moving forward. And that's actually one of the first action steps in the action plan, is to evaluate the need for staff capacity in order to implement things.
Okay, what I would like is if you could electronically send to Liz the budget, and if you could also send to Liz maybe a breakdown of the budget and how you see this going out. Any projections you could give for the commission would also be very helpful. And do you have this action plan electronically?
Yep. Yeah, it's actually on the town's website, on the cultural planning page.
Okay.
I'll send a link to you.
Is there any other information that you, the committee would be looking for? Carolyn and then Al. Alan.
I'd like to see it just like we do with the other budgets, FY 2016, FY 2017, FY 2018, and FY 2019. So the budget breakdown. And then with a little summary about what you're hoping to accomplish, where you've come, what you've done, and what you're hoping to accomplish.
Alan?
And I'd like to see a design spec for the website, wireframe, whatever's been done, and the name of the vendor.
Sure. Okay, Mary Margaret?
Last year when you all came, we talked about how the consultant was worth her weight because she was to bring in that amount of grants. So I'm just wondering, it might be helpful to see if she has brought in some more grant money and what kinds of grant money should go out.
We did just bring that out, but we can do it again. Yeah.
Oh, we can send that around with the other materials
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Keep in mind now the town is entering deficit territory. We're probably $3 million in deficit for this next year's budget. And that's going to keep growing, and then we're going to have to explain to the citizens why we need an override in another year or two. And occasionally we'll have, like the Historic Commission came and asked for a couple $100 more so they could give their secretary a raise. But this is, like I said, going from like 10 to 25 to 40. I think we need more information about this. And if we have any other questions, we'll call you back. If we need that, we have a spot in 2 weeks. But maybe the information you send will be sufficient. Is there anything else anybody would like? John?
I'd just like to make a comment. We've kind of beat up on you a little bit, so as Alan says, we're trying hard to do what we really have to do in order to be able to gain these overrides and things. And I want to compliment you on getting 60% of the investment in terms of a grant. I mean, that's rather fabulous, I think. So anyway, just on the sort of positive side, to not making you feel so bad, I made those comments. But I agree with virtually as well. Some of the things that people said here, you know, we really do need more information, okay?
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
You know,
Thanks.
Stephen?
Just one more quick. And this isn't before us, but the Article 13, the bylaw amendment for the commission, is that language available or is?
It's being created.
Okay.
It's still being worked on.
Okay. And is that going to be presented at town meeting?
Yeah.
Because that may help inform us in terms of what you're proposing to change in terms of what you're going to spend next year. So to the extent that that can be done, it doesn't sound like it would be available by the time you send us the budget, but I think that would help us to understand how you want to spend the money if the bylaw is going to be changed to help you accomplish new things.
That's exactly right. So thank you for bringing that up. We're going to be a new and bigger organization with a broader scope, and we're trying to do things on a larger scale that are more meaningful and impactful for the town, and to bring us more attention and to bring us
And
more,
with excellence, too.
Quality.
Quality, yeah.
Maybe a grant from the Capitol Theater.
From the Capitol.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate all your time and effort.
No problem. Thank you. I'm just gonna grab this.
And the Capitol Theater would have to list all those movies,
Yeah, you
though,
want
for
these
them
books
to
back?
appear on the website. I have to
That'd be great.
make that clear. But they'll find it worth it. Sure.
All right.
Going down.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Okay, just so we can sort of finish a couple of warrant articles, Liz and I have been working, sorry.
I just made a comment about this matter.
Sure.
I'm not going to be here after Wednesday for about 2 weeks, so this will probably come up when I'm gone.
Can you
But-
speak up?
I'm sorry, so I'm not going to be here for a couple of weeks after Wednesday. I think whatever we do for this council, we should not put this money into the planning department's budget for at least another year to find out what they're doing and what they're trying to do. Whether or not they get an additional 15,000 is one question, but if we put that in there, it's going to become institutionalized, and she's already given the signal that she's going to increase it. So I just think that's the wrong way to go until we understand what they're really doing, and that's going to take a while.
I think some of the reason it probably ended up there was to have somebody some full-time person supervise a consultant, which I can understand. We could always put it in the commission, and then where it said sums to be raised by general tax expended under the direction of the various commissions, committees, and boards, and add some language that any consultants will be supervised from the town manager or something like that. But I was surprised when I saw that money in that other budget. And let's find out when we get all the information together, but I was a little surprised by that.
I want to make one little comment too. I agree with Charlie. I just got this feeling that the planning department is using the arts to grab $15,000 and then passing on some of their work to them. I would have felt better if they came up without the planning department. That's my fault.
Well, it was in their budget, so we had to,
Yeah, I understand.
you know,
But
we
it's,
did that.
And then I hate to go against something that I didn't even want to do last year. I was one of the 8 that voted no, because I had a funny feeling that this was going to happen again. And I think it'll happen again. So, that's my opinion.
Okay. Okay, so just so we can get through, I'm sorry, John?
I think an important indicator will be that website. In other words, if the website is really good, that'll be an indication that they know what to do. Well,
It's got to be really good at that price.
yeah, and how will we know? But when they are good, it's really worth it. We have to measure.
Yep. Okay, let's just take a couple articles and then we'll go back to the Mary Margaret's. Now, Article 37 is commissions and committees. So A through J, should be all set, so I'd like to vote it. K, the last one is the arts and culture. We'll leave that undecided. So A is the Historic Commission, where we've increased it to $2,660. Historic District Commissions are $5,100. Capital Planning is 0. Commission on Disability is 3. Recycling is 3,000. Human Rights Commission, we voted to 7,500. Arlington Tourism and Economic Development is 4,275. Vision 2020 is 3,800. These are all the same as last year. I'm sorry?
Which article is it?
37.
You're page 205.
Yeah, you're getting it from page 206 and 207.
Right. Oh, right, yeah, okay,
In
right.
the-
Right. That's what it was.
Liz?
The Vision 2020 chairman wrote to me and said that they were gonna only ask for 3,000 this year instead of 3,800.
Model citizen.
Okay, so Vision.
Do I hear a motion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Citizen of the year.
Give them the money just because.
Okay, so Vision 2020 is 3,000. Bless them. Transportation Advisory is 0, and Scenic Byway is 2,000. So all those are the same as last year, except for the 500 increase for historic, the 3,000 increase for human rights, and the $800 decrease for Vision 2020. So, can I get a motion on all those? Okay, second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So, just to be clear, we're voting on everything except for the Arlington Commission Arts.
That's correct. That's correct.
Can I ask which one went up by 500? Because it doesn't look like it went up by 500 on this sheet.
The Arlington Historic Commission.
They asked for it tonight.
They asked for it tonight.
Yeah, I know, I know.
So they were 2,160, so we've gone to 2,660. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so favorable action, unanimous. And Paul, okay. 3/12/18. Okay, so I asked Liz, when Liz gets it all out to everybody, go through it, and we'll discuss it next when we have a chance. Article 38 is appropriations for town celebrations and events. So we've got the Patriots' Day celebration, Veterans' Day, and Memorial Day. Last year was 5,667. Display of American flags on Mass Ave, which was 0. Placing of American flags on graves of veterans is 4,500. And the Town Day celebration was 5,000. So none of those have asked for an increase. So do I have a, David, motion, favorable action? Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? 3/12/18. And the last one is just appropriations miscellaneous. The Legal Defense Fund, 0. And the indemnification of medical costs, I got a new number today from Sandy, is $9,399. That we indemnify for costs that were incurred in the last calendar year that were not covered by any other insurance. So the total would be $9,399. John?
It's in the budget book anywhere.
209.
Yeah, 209.
So moved.
But there's no line item for the defense fund.
We've been appropriating 0 forever. Sometimes we use this to appropriate money into.
The balance is 0 right now on that.
That's right. We took that down in
And-
January.
And I'm sorry, then we went from, the new number is,
$9,399. Last year, we had it in the budget book as 11,000 and change. That was last year's. So I got the new number. Do I have a motion? Okay. And second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, favorable action, unanimous.
Unanimous.
3/12. Okay, back to budgets.
Okay, so we're back in Health and Human Services on page 146, because of the question about what did we do about rats previously. Yeah. Beginning in 2015 is when Health and Human Services started mapping the calls, where people were citing the rats, what they were doing, what kind of activity. And so after mapping that, they determined that since they first started and now it's increased 80%, the rat problem and the sightings. So that's why they hadn't done anything before now, but it has become a significant public health concern. So there's a person in Health and Human Services who does some education, like put the tops on your garbage cans, put your garbage cans in the garage, but all kinds of things like that. And I think I had mentioned last week there is a co-op student who goes around, finds the rat burrows, and helps them on their way. Without without being, so it's not the toxic pesticide, so it doesn't impact the water, the soil, or any.
It's just CO2 down the hole, turns out, which is really good because,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't poison any raptors or anything like that. If the rat gets poisoned and then is eaten by a hawk, the hawk croaks. So it's a really good way to do it.
So that's the story of rats. And mosquitoes, all along they hired someone to put these little pucks in the storm drains, and then they spray it. So if you ever notice the storm drains are sprayed with spray paint, that's to mark that that one's been done. So I don't know, is there any other questions about mosquitoes or rats?
John, did you have your,
What?
John, did you have your hand up? No?
I'm trying to formulate the question.
Okay.
Anybody else? Carolyn?
Can we find out where, my question is, where was this before? We've done this before, so.
The mosquitoes, that
has a line item.
We have not done rats before.
Oh, okay.
When people called up and it was on private property, suggestions were made. But now that there are so many more rat sightings and it's more public and it's become a public health issue, this is the first year that we have done something about it.
I mean, with all the construction going on in the town,
Exactly.
you know, tear downs, Sims, Brigham, all the different things, it's probably.
Well, I have to say that
Oh, you're up on the rats.
where I was surprised to find the areas identified as most problematic, and the Bishop School was one of them. Bishop
It's
School.
not the,
What?
it's not the restaurants.
It's many things, but it's the bike path, it's Broadway Plaza, it's the Uncle Sam Visitor Center, and it's the Spy Pond Park and boat ramp. I mean, those aren't the only places.
outflows.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my neighbors told me that years ago there was a rat problem down by the river. So, I don't know, but this is the first year that they've determined it's enough of a public health hazard to actually do something about it.
Okay, are there any other questions on rats?
Or mosquitoes.
Or mosquitoes? David?
Just one, you mentioned the exterminating method that's used, like the CO2 method. Is that approved by the state?
I'm sure it is. I didn't ask
'Cause there
that
was a-
question because Christine, I don't think would use, I think she studied what to use that would be the most humane to the animals and not toxic to humans.
Because there was a, like, the city of Boston got into an issue, I think, a year ago, where they tried maybe something similar, and the state shut them down because of some environmental disputes. So that's the question, like, you know, hopefully our method is approved by the state.
I can ask, but I would assume, I mean, she does everything by the book and is in charge of all the public health records.
I think the issue was they were describing, they were running into the same problem that we're running into, which is a new phenomenon, so we should try something new. then the state, you know, came back and said you can't do it that way, and there've been this tug pull and push and pull of situations. It might be worth it.
Yeah, I'll ask her in email.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mary Margaret. Next budget.
Okay, we can do Council on Aging Transportation in the Enterprise Funds,
Okay.
and that is on page 184. So the fund balance as of June 30th was $51,503.
I'm sorry, 51,000,
503.
and that's as of the end of fiscal 17?
Yeah, end of June, yeah. I don't know that there's much to say about this. I mean, these are all the different ways that people can get rides for medical or to the senior center. The gifts, donations, she said the donations come from the road race and the Sims grant. The DART fees are dial-a-ride taxi. So if you're a senior, you can call the taxis and it's a less expensive trip for seniors.
What was that, Mary Margaret?
It's a less expensive trip for seniors to use the taxis.
I'm
So,
sorry, which is?
The dial-a-ride, DART. DART
DART,
is
okay.
dial-a-ride. Let's see, what else? The training that's done is training on how to use the van and how to work with seniors. You know, some of them are in wheelchairs, and you know how to get them into the van and out and keep them safe. So, do you have any questions before I suggest we approve this?
So any questions on Council on Aging Transportation? Obviously, this is one of those things which is subsidized for community development block grant money. Older I get, the more I appreciate it.
All right, so then I move that we accept it as printed.
Second.
Okay, so 89,705 and 89,705 revenues and expenditures.
Yeah.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you for reminding me. Keep forgetting I'm up there. Okay, next.
All right, next one is AYCC. And I'm giving you all a handout on all the alternative funding sources for all these different budgets that Christine's had. So she's done a lot of work to make sure that all these programs can be funded and not totally out of the town. So that's the very next budget on page 188. The fund balance remaining in that budget at the end of June was $56,490.
Can you say that again, Mary Margaret?
Yep, $56,490. All right, in that budget, the line item 5230, administrative fees, is really the increase in the EMR, the electronic medical record cost. Let's see. Otherwise, unclassified is really mostly supplies. And the EMR has been bringing in more money, the new EMR, so that was a good suggestion. I'm not sure what else to say about this, except that, like I said, she tries really hard to get other funding sources, but this is a a really much-needed program, and there are very few programs for children in this state, and this is one of the best states for people with mental health issues. So this program has done so much good work. She works with Fred Ryan, who also has a social worker for adults. There's the school resource person, so that children at risk are identified early. And the fact that there's just a resource for the children and their families is quite phenomenal. And I think they're doing really great work. And if you read that awful story in the Globe about the person who killed the person in Manchester Public Library, the goal here is to identify and help those people before something tragic happens. The mother of that person is saying she doesn't know where to get help. So this is a fabulous resource we have in this town. So I move that we support it and approve the budget.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Questions, discussion? David?
Just one question. The other state revenue that's dropped off, from historically, just what was it, I mean, just out of curiosity, what's the story behind that as a funding source? I don't know. That's fine.
I don't know. I don't know that specifically, other than it might have been other grants, this line item there, the revenues. I can ask her that too.
Yeah, it's good to say
I think.
Is the spreadsheet supposed to be fiscal 18 or fiscal 19? Because the numbers don't match. Like pie chart in several cases.
I think this is just H.
So if we just do what CDBG or the units one. The spreadsheet is 92, but the pie chart is 94.5. Are they different years?
I don't know, maybe she just didn't change that, but I'll ask her that too.
Do you have the fund balance for fiscal 17?
Yeah, we did 56,490.
56,490. Okay. Other questions? Peter?
Okay.
Mary Margaret?
Yeah?
How much of that income to AYCC is from the big event they have?
That's a significant amount. You mean the gala that they have?
Yeah. Is that the bulk of the 90,000?
Well, let's see. She said it came from federal grants, state funding, other grants for AYCC. Oh, no, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It probably is.
That's the gift and donations you're asking about?
Yeah.
Well, it's that plus.
Plus.
Yeah, other gifts for people.
Grant?
Just wanted to give a thumbs up to this, to the center, because I remember following this from way back when, where they've actually built up, improving billing out of town, providing services, and we get the difference. I think they've been doing a great job.
The other thing I'll say is, in the same vein as what Bernie Margaret said, if we have any hope of identifying a shooter before he gets into one of the schools, this is one of the places where we're likely to find it, if it's at all possible.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, motion has been made and seconded for 651,988 revenues and expenditures, and Mary Margaret will get back with a couple of the questions that have been asked. Any further? Charlie?
So in line 4972, transfer from other fund, that's the town's contribution to this.
That's right.
Yes.
So where do we have to transfer that out from someplace else?
Well, this is an enterprise fund, so it's in the, when we vote this, we also vote that transfer as part of it, just like when we vote any of the other enterprise funds. And I'm just going to the summary page in the FinCom report. Yeah, so in the summary, youth services subsidy, 120,000. So, you know, this is, the 120 is an appropriation from the general fund to subsidize that. And I think that was the charge the manager made back when we had to cut budgets. You get 120, and the rest you have to do yourself.
Right.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? 3/12/19. Okay, next budget?
Do rec and rink.
Sure.
So the recreation budget is on 176. All right, so they made a big change in how these budgets were presented and how they used to account for things. So that's why there's such enormous jump in numbers, because they used to be in they put some in revolving funds, took them out and then put them in reserve funds, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, if I may. What he found out is that they can't pay salaries out of the revolving fund, apparently by state law. So, in a matter of speaking, it's been done wrong for a number of years now. So, the revolving fund is just kind of a short-term amount of money that they use in some situation that's unanticipated that comes up. Whereas the revolving fund is where all the salaries and things should be paid from. So the reason for all these strange, 320%, 100 minus 100%, all that stuff along the right-hand column, all has to do with the fact that they essentially took a huge amount of money out of the revolving fund and put it into the enterprise fund so that they could do it the way they're supposed to do it.
Right. So they use revolving funds for programs and felt this way it was more transparent who was doing what. So at the end of June, the reserve fund was 450,641.
I'm sorry.
450,641.
Okay, now is that the fund balance at the end of 17 after you ignore the money coming in that was paid into the account in June for summer services?
I just asked the question, what was the reserve fund balance as of June 30th?
Okay.
And that's what he told me. I know, I mean, there's just so many big number changes, but so I don't know what to focus on here. But they're developing more and more programs and have lots of programs for the kids of all ages. Let's see, what else could we? Oh, and he's also, before the salary for him used to be 50% in the rink and 50% in recreation, but he changed that so that 80% of the salary comes from recreation, only 20 from the rink.
I have to have a lot of footnotes on this one.
He's also looking for an assistant director. We asked him why, and the answer is there's a $2.5 million fund that has to be managed. They're bringing in revenues from other programs. There's over 200 programs per year, and I think John sent around the brochure for the upcoming programs. They have to oversee all the capital projects that have to do with parks and facilities, and that actually they have, despite how many programs they have kids on the waiting list for most of the programs. So they're leasing space on Mass Ave to do the preschool that they used to do in the Gibbs. And the after-school program is being run out of the modulars at the Thompson School. And I don't know what else to focus on tomorrow, just some questions.
We'd like to, just to give us a buy on this one page here with all the pluses, minuses in the right-hand column till next year and it's settled down.
Right, I mean,
Quite
but-
frankly, we can't answer very much. of the way
Well,
we
we
put it.
explained that, because he took them out of
Yeah.
one and put it in
Right.
the enterprise fund, but if there's specific questions you have, I mean, we did ask about the pump.
Okay, Charlie?
So I have a question on the salaries.
Same here.
Yeah.
So the, some of these salaries, like one is going from 8,000 to 22,000. There's 4 at 11,000 that are going to 56 or 32 or 47. They don't look like they're replacements.
Right, so the assistant director hasn't been filled yet. The assistant for the preschool will be filled at 0.8 of an FTE. And I wonder if part of this is moving people from the wrecking rink, moving them around, or, you know, dividing a person instead of into half, into 3/4. But why don't you ask a specific question and then
Okay, well, look at Roberts, assistant after school. Total prior was 11,354, and now it's 32,082. The bottom 4 salaries, they all jumped a huge amount.
They're all the same, it looks like you're wrong. Well, it looks like it, you know, because it keeps repeating itself, it's not just the last 4, but 2 of
right,
above it
I
is
see
the
what you
same.
mean. For the min and max, you mean?
No,
No.
total for
No.
FY18. All of these numbers are wrong.
Right. Well, they all work at the preschool.
My guess is they were pulled, these are the people pulled out of the revolving fund that used to,
I'll ask that question.
yeah, if you probably just go down the list. The other thing, were any of these people in the rink?
No.
No?
Just check that.
Well, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just look at any of them that have jumped.
Yeah, so is Kirschner, so is Day, so is Linsky, so is Cunningham. All right, I'll ask him how he divided them and how he came to these.
Are these real increases, or were they just paid elsewhere out of the revolving fund, a chunk of this?
I don't think so, because, well, I'll ask.
Okay.
I don't think that's.
Charlie?
So on the expenses, vis-a-vis some of the conversations that we had earlier, the recreation department used to have programs they ran at the Gibbs. And if you look at
Right.
428, 913, and 914, there's 0 in that category because they went back to the school department. So what did they do for space for those programs, or did they just drop?
Like I said, the preschool went to a place on Mass Ave, and the after-school programs, or do you mean the sports things like the basketball?
They were using the gym, I think.
Yeah, they did use the gym. I don't know if they're I don't know what they're doing with the gym. They're using the modulars at Thompson for the after-school programs, but can't use that to play gym. Do you know where they're playing the sport, doing the basketball thing?
I aged out. I was coaching, but my son aged out.
But it looks like if you look at the expenses above there, it looks like there's 0 in some of those programs. So it looks like maybe they dropped the programs in 2019.
I don't know. I don't think that's what happened, but let's ask where they are. All right. Do you have other questions you want to ask, so I can just go ask them all at once?
Well, I think we need a cross-check.
Yeah.
In other words,
Yeah.
each of this, like you get 800, I'm looking at revenues, 894,000 seasonal program income, and then it's broken down elsewhere. It's almost like you'd need to take the revolving fund and put it in these categories so we can compare 18 to 19.
Yeah.
I mean, how much money was going through that revolving fund?
Well, a lot.
Yeah.
There were a lot of kids putting in money and then took it out when the program actually happened and you had to pay the instructor. So
Yeah.
it really revolved.
So it looks like probably over $1 million.
Yeah.
Sort of makes you wonder about a lot of these revolving funds, we just, and of course, they're not our responsibility, they're the selectmen, but they just sort of pass through, quite often with a lot of money in it. And,
Okay, so we can do that.
okay, other questions,
Yeah,
Alan?
Well,
Alan?
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you, if it'd be possible for them to produce something, so we compare apples to apples, something with the revolving fund revenues and expenses split out, so we can see what it would have looked like if they used the same bookkeeping this year as last year.
We may have to ask him to come in, to tell you the truth, because he started explaining this to us, and we was amazed before very long at all.
Like Al said, if there's a spreadsheet with 2 columns where
Right.
the previous appropriations and revolving fund appropriations with the total big is, because, again, I sort of understand salaries that were being paid from the revolving fund that have big increases. The revenues are, I think, a little more complicated, like how did they go up 180%? Because they're not being paid in the revolving fund or whatever, so I think it'd be broken down in a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, if they just take the 18 and 19 columns here, and then add another column to the left, which is revolving funds, then, I mean, I realize it'll take some work, but, we're gonna get all these questions, well, maybe we won't, but I think we'll get questions on town meeting floor. Somebody's gonna notice this.
Okay, Mary, he's gonna kill me when he hears me on tape, but you might wanna have Sandy help them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. he will.
Figure out, right, how to do this in a way that makes sense.
Yes. Okay,
One more
then.
thing on his plate.
Okay, David?
Just on, looks like summer programs and reservoir, is this like a projected, increased number of kids, or is this fees going up?
Say that again?
Like on the 2 revenue line items for recreation, the 3rd and 4th, the summer programs, and then the reservoir?
The res is the people who buy the tags.
Yeah.
And the summer programs are for the kids in the summer.
No, that's what I got. So are those fees going up, or are there just more kids using it? Or are you moving more tags being bought?
I think it must be more kids. I don't think the tag fees go up.
Fees, I'm pretty sure fees didn't go up, so it's more kids. More
Yeah.
kids.
So for both, okay.
Do you remember what you paid last year?
I think it was like $70 a person.
Plus, you also have people coming in daily.
$50 adult, 35 for kids, 35 for seniors. Family tags were $145 for 2 adults and 2 kids.
That's what we bought. We bought the family tag.
Does that sound like about what you got?
It'd be good to confirm.
Yeah, if you could just add that to the list. Other questions? Okay, so why don't we table this for now and come back to it?
All right, well, can we do the rink and then I can ask them all the questions all at the same time?
That sounds reasonable.
We've got 12 minutes.
All right, so the reserve fund for that, as of the end of June was 96,636.
96.
96,636. Right, there's still no increase in fees. This is the 4th year in a row. Remember, there are regulations about how much the state will let us increase the fees of the rink. The The rink marketing is that people putting up the advertising around the rink. They completed the electrical upgrade and they're doing some ADA work. And let's see. What else did you say?
The truck and Zamboni gas is now absorbed into the fuel line, the heating fuel line. So that's why that went down 100%.
And the rink marketing generates $7,500 in revenue. The concession, the overtime for the concession is about $7,500. And there's also a lot of snow removal that has to be done there because it's used all the time, in the winter time. The lease that we have to pay to DCR, because this is not an Arlington rate, as we said, is 2% of the gross revenue. The concession stand is open less than it has been because they're trying to do it just at peak times so they don't have to staff it all the time. And what else?
Well, as you said, you also completed a lot of electrical work there. Yes. And that currently has ADA improvements in process, bathrooms, concession area, water fountains with the carnival.
And then they're working on activities, so ADA activities too. Because it's pretty awesome. So let's hear the list of questions.
Is roller skating just more popular than they had expected? It's a significant increase in the revenues.
It might just be that it's open. They have roller skating when on off time, and you go down to the membrane and skate on the membrane.
Other questions? This is a little bit more apples than apples than the, David?
Well, if we approve this, are we implicitly approving this assistant director? Because part of the assistant director for is in this budget. It's tied to the other one. I mean, I'm just wondering if that's so worth tabling just because they look like they may be tied.
Yes, I mean, does he get paid out of both budgets?
Yeah.
Does she? Yes.
Now, is the assistant director a new position?
Yes.
That was not mentioned in the town manager's letter. It looked like on the front of the budget, talking about other positions that were identified. Not listed.
So I suppose, yes, you're at least approving, not the whole assistant director, but part of it. Charlie?
Yeah, I just noticed another salary here that's going up by factor 2. That's the principal clerk typist, going from 14,220 to 21,500.
I think it's, because yes, they needed more time, but I will put that in the question.
Other questions? Stephen?
Just a question on the allocation, Mary Margaret. You said 80-20. Is this the fiscal 19's first year that they're doing 80-20, or did he do it last year?
Yeah, he did 50-50,
Okay.
Joe did it.
Okay, all right.
Alan?
Yeah, I noticed the salaries, the temp salaries has gone down significantly. Is that
The what salary?
the salaries and wages temp, 5102? Is that partially because of the new position, the assistant director position? On page 180. And you see salaries and wages temp is down 16,000.
It could be that, and, I mean, they still have temp people
Yeah.
working to do the programs, but maybe if they have the assistant director, he can take on some of those programs. That's just my
Like I said,
surmise.
that begs the question, why it's going down, is assistant director or is it something else?
Yeah, those tied together.
Right.
Because that sort of subsidizes an assistant director.
Other questions? Okay.
That's it?
David, do you want to hold this until that assistant director position gets?
I think until, because they're tied, and because there's so many questions on the other funding, that'd be my recommendation, we hold.
Okay. How the rest of the committee?
Look, I'll come back and answer the
Yeah,
questions.
on both of them.
And then we'll vote.
Yeah.
And then we'll vote, yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions on the rate?
Okay. Any other budgets that you have?
That's all mine.
That's all yours. Come on, we got 5 minutes. Okay. I'm just skimming through the Finance Committee report. The PEG access, that whole issue is a bit up in the air. Articles 25 and 26. Remember, that's the one with the cable. DOR is thinking of reversing that. They don't have to do it for next year and putting it off a year, but I'll find out from the manager. Acceptance of legislation increases survivor benefits. We're going to have next Monday will be the retirement board coming in on that. Still have to find out about the mumbling here, parking benefits district, if they want anything there. Capital budget, we will hear this Wednesday. Collective bargaining. Any rescissions?
Yes.
There will be, okay. Grant, are you going to have how's your status on the water and the sewer articles and the water and sewer budget?
I actually have the sewer articles somewhere, but the budget's not ready yet.
Okay. Now it's getting late. Any other business before the committee? Okay, meeting adjourned. We'll see you on Wednesday for capital planning.
Yeah.